guys, welcome to the Homestead. So today we're going to talk a little bit about canning. I mentioned the other day that I had 50 pounds of carrots dropped off at my doorstep, of which I took immediate advantage of, and I canned as much of that as possible. Do not pass up opportunities when they present themselves, folks, especially in the times that we're living in. If you have the ability to put up food and to keep that for storage purposes and to save food, the things that you're growing in your garden, you must be thinking ahead right now. A whole bunch of carrots canned and in my pantry. I did a ton of pint jars. I did a ton of quart jars. And so I've got carrots. And I feel really good about that because it's going to last me a long time. Have the things set aside now that you're going to need for what your garden is going to produce. Or if just someone drops by and says, hey, listen, I've got a bunch extra. I ran into a bunch of this stuff, and it's always the same way. I used to volunteer at a food pantry that was in town, locally. And every year, the gardeners of the community would come into this food pantry because they had so much squash and so many cucumbers and so many this or so many of that, in abundance of what they grew that they couldn't consume it themselves, and they drop it off at the food pantry. And most of it gets thrown away. I'm just telling you right now, because the majority of people who show up at that food pantry, the local grocery store would donate their boxes of dozens of donuts that wouldn't get bought because they had to bake them fresh daily. And so they'd pass right over the squash, they'd pass right over the cucumbers, the cabbages, or whatever, the green peppers, and they'd go right for those donuts. I took some home. Believe me, I took a bunch of that stuff home. And every once in a while, they get tons of apples, and those were like fantastic. We get those in the fall, and great for deer season. Anyway, to bring in the deer. Anyway, carrots. So I got 50 pounds, so I put a bunch up. And I did some tests this week, and I was going to talk to you about that. So I have my regular canning lids. These are ball canning lids, and I have Kerr and ball jars. Some of them older, some of them newer, whatever. But a while back, I did a video, and I don't remember how long a while back it was, because I was scammed. I was totally scammed because I went on Google and I was searching, because it was during a couple years ago when there was a mass shortage of canning supplies. And so I searched for these canning lids and I was looking online. Anyway, there was a company, a website that presented itself as an American-made provider of canning jars, canning lids and rings. Canning lids. And I got taken in by it. They basically lied on their website, made in America. It was not. And this company was well known, because I didn't do enough research, was well known online for lying to people. Anyway, so I placed the order and then found out later the truth. Anyway, I got a ton of these lids, so I ordered like 100 lids and 100 rings, whatever, of both sizes, regular and largemouth. And once I realized what they were, I was like, okay, I'm not using those. But I didn't throw them away. I just set them to the side. And about a year ago, I was like, maybe I should test a few of those to see if they do work. Well, I did one. I did one here. I actually did two. In all this huge batch I did of carrots, I did 2 pint-sized jars of this lid, this no-name brand, Chinese-made lid. And so far, it's doing okay. Nothing doing there. So we'll see. We'll see how this works. I'm going to take those 2 jars, I'm going to put them to the side, and I'm going to watch them in my pantry and see how they perform. My point being in all this is that if you are, stay with brands that you know and trust, right off the bat. However, and in life there is always a however, if you're given a great deal on something, it's okay to maybe put your toe into that pool and just see how the water is. You might get burned. That toe might get bit off. Who knows? But you learn. And so I have these things. I'm not going to throw them away. I am going to see how well they perform. They look and feel like normal lids. The rubber on the bottom looks fine, but I'm going to try them. I'm going to test them. But I'm also going to make sure I have my true and trusted brands that I know work and have a good, as long as you operate your canning process the way it should, then you'll go ahead and usually turn out everything will be okay. Well, hopefully. Now, another thing I did on this one, these carrots or a non-USDA approved method. That's how I canned them. And my another point that I wanted to do in this video was to let you guys know, hey, listen, there's lots of books out there on how to do canning, lots of websites, lots of videos, and there's USDA approved methods. You may not know this, but the federal government is not the most trusted source for information these days. They're out there saying, oh, inflation's going down. And meanwhile, inflation's, to the moon. I have seen no lack of rise of inflation these days. So all that being said, understand that there are different methods out there. What you want to do is find somebody, usually an elderly person, and say, okay, how have you been canning all of your life? Teach me how you do it. So this is a non-USDA canning method. What I did here is I cut up the carrots normally, and they say you have to use pressure can carrots. This was water bath for 2 hours. You did what? Yes, I water bathed this for 2 hours. And what I did was I added a teaspoon of vinegar and a half teaspoon of salt to this before I water bathed it for 2 hours. Now, this information came from someone who has been doing this for eons and never died. They're still walking amongst us. They're still drawing oxygen, and they still have that oxygen habit that so many other people need to be deprived of. And it works. It works. My point, I also do the dry bean canning method. I don't soak my beans before I can my pinto beans. I don't soak my beans. The USDA frowns upon that. Well, again, there are other ways to skin a cat. Not that I would ever skin a cat, but if I was there, you get my point. You can do other things besides what the USDA mandates that you do. Just throwing that out there. The non-USDA canning method with questionable Chinese lids. All right, the other thing that was brought up on Twitter, and I thought I would talk about it, since I got a little bit of feedback, was the pickling method. I love making sauerkraut. I have not done fermenting in a while, but a lot of people say, hey, you going to do any fermenting with all those carrots? Yeah, I did a little bit of fermenting. I got some cabbage, I got some onions, I got some garlic in here, and I got the carrots. So this is called the Perfect Pickler. I don't want to tip it over too much, but it's called the Perfect Pickler. And this is a fermentation method. It's a wide mouth jar, and I have this in a half gallon pickler or jar that, it's basically a canning jar. And you can get these vegetable fermenting kits called the Perfect Pickler. You can find these online. I think it's perfectpickler.com. And they're an easy system. Now, you don't need these things to ferment, okay? But they do make it really simple and easy, and they come with everything in one kit to do what I'm doing here. But you can buy multiples of these, or you can look online. There's plenty of fermenting videos out there. Off Grid with Doug and Stacy has some. Rain Country has some. You can watch those videos, and they will give you all kinds of great information. You don't need these kits, but they come in handy. But, do your own research. But they do provide an amazing amount of probiotics for your diet, and most of you Americans out there are not gut healthy, and so you need this in your life. It's going to take care of a lot of issues that you may or may not be having. You can notice it's getting a little bit cloudy up here. This has only been in the jar for like 2 days. It's getting a little bit cloudy up there. That's what you want. You want this formation of the mother. Now, that's the probiotics. That's the culture that is being formed inside of this jar. And when it's done, it's going to taste fantastic. And so we're going to be diving into that here in about 3-ish days, maybe 4 days. We'll see how it works. But yeah, there's all kinds of great stuff you can get into. I really highly recommend to get into fermenting if you can. All right, before I make this video too long, I want to get into something else. And that is Danny over at Deep South Homestead. Like I said about the USDA-approved canning methods, there are people out there who've been doing things for a long, long time. And now those usually are the best people to learn from in this life because they learn by experience. And so he has been on this kick lately, and I've never heard of it really. Maybe in past, I don't know. I've never really heard of it. But he's been talking about it, and I guess he's been going back and forth with his audience on this electro-culture stuff. And, I'm always willing to try stuff. I'll try anything once. to see if it works. And so it's basically taking copper wire like this and putting it in your garden around your plants, and like you can like, this is probably a poor example, but like taking these things and putting them in spirals and like putting them in the ground by your plants, or maybe I'll hang these on my tomato cages. There's different methods. I've seen people out there on YouTube. I'm learning about this, and I'm trying to figure out, okay, what works. But we've got lots of copper around here because we've been taking apart all these copper motors and stuff like that here, because we're smelting these into bars, and we're going to be at some point selling these. I thought about selling them on my website, but I was like, you know what? I'll probably sell these at my speaking events that I'm going to be doing this summer. So if you come out and see me, there might be a chance you might be able to pick up a copper bar or an aluminum bar that was made here on the Homestead by my oldest. But I got lots of copper laying around. So I'm like, well, I got all this laying around. Maybe I'll try this electro-culture stuff and just see how it goes. I know there's a lot of things in this world I don't understand, okay? And there are a lot of people who are out there saying, hey, this works, and there are some people out there saying, oh, it's a bunch of tomfoolery. I don't know what to believe, but listen, I know that right now times are tough. Times may get desperate here very quickly. Have you seen our southern border lately? So if that's the case, and there is a possibility for food shortages, I want to make sure I do everything possible to give me the best chance possible to have a good harvest, okay? So I'm going to try it. I've taken his advice, and I'm going to go out there and I'm researching some things. I'm just bringing it up because there's a reality that a lot of people, it escapes them these days, and that is to find the people who have learned through experience and then learn from them. My father-in-law, Tim, lives on the homestead here. He has, if I have a question about chickens or raising quail or pheasants, he's done it. He's done it. If I need a question about tools, I mean, he's got so many tools, it's not even funny. If I have a question about tools or how to do something when it comes to building something, I usually go to him, hey, do you have a tool for this? And usually 99% of the time he does, because he has that experience. Learn from those who have the experience. And Danny has an amazing amount of experience when it comes to gardening. And he's been doing this for a while. He says it works. Okay. I'm willing to give it a try. And I think you should be doing everything you can do right now with the way the world is to have the best chance at success. Right now, especially. Good grief. All right, guys. Let me know what you think. What are you canning right now? Are you canning anything? I know it's early in the season. I know this just got dropped off at my doorstep. A lot of times people grow carrots in the wintertime, and they harvest them in the spring. It just depends on where you're at. We're kind of down in the south. So anyway, and fermenting. Always love to ferment. Always love to grow sprouts and things like that. So let me know what you're doing in the comments below. What you post and your experience about what you post in the comments below may help someone else who is in search for information. There are so many people who tell me I learned a lot in the comments because we're all learning from each other. We're all sharing. Hey, listen, I don't put ads at the end in my videos, okay, and in the middle of my videos, because I don't like it when other people do that, because it throws off the content. I'm paying attention and I'm looking and listening to what someone's saying, and all of a sudden there's a YouTube ad that lasts 15 seconds and I can't skip it. I don't do that, so I put my ads at the end. If you have a 401k, an IRA, or a savings account, and you're watching the insanity that's happening in the banking system right now, and the inflation and the purchasing power of your dollar fly away, you need to call Genesis Gold Group. The ad is at the end of the video. Check it out. All right, guys. See you next time in the Homestead. Bye. Alexander the Great. Did you know when he died, his body was placed in a coffin made of solid gold? Decades later, Ptolemy X and Cleopatra III stole the coffin and gold artifacts just so they could pay their war debts. Germany, at the time of World War II, stole all of the gold they could get their hands on, and much of it still today has not yet been accounted for. You see, all throughout history, when times get tough, people, either good or bad, seek real wealth. They turn to gold and silver. The central banks and Wall Street cheerleaders would have you believe that gold and silver are just shiny rocks with no real value. But did you know that central banks around the world have for the last year been buying record amounts of gold and silver for stockpiling? Stockpiling for what? What do they know that they're not telling us? Genesis Gold Group is a proud supporter of an American homestead. They help people get out of locked-in 401ks and IRAs into something that's real, physical gold and silver. If you're going to be locked into something, it might be a good idea to talk to Genesis Gold Group about being locked into something physically vaulted instead of just a piece of paper that at the end of the day is just that, a piece of paper. It's a clear surety that our economy is headed for turbulent waters. The nation is currently over $31 trillion in debt, and Congress keeps spending money and the Fed keeps printing it. That does not bode well for anyone keeping and saving money in savings accounts or paper-denominated assets. Call Genesis Gold Group today, this instant, or visit them online at genesisgoldgroup.com. They can put together a strategy that's right for you. And be sure to say that you heard about them from an American Homestead.